1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. 5, 6, grab your crucifix, a bowl of popcorn, and turn the lights down low.
Never sleep again.
Well known among both horror fans and general audiences, A Nightmare on Elm Street introduced audiences to the enduringly frightening and funny Freddy Krueger.
There's so much more to learn. How about this, Doc?
Performed with precision and gusto by genre veteran Robert Englund, A Nightmare on Elm Street is a classic, and for good reason, with ample gore, creative deaths, strong performances, and a genuinely frightening boogeyman. A Nightmare on Elm Street is worth revisiting again and again. In honour of its enduring legacy, today we take a look at 10 incredible things about A Nightmare on Elm Street. So dim the lights, and please, for the love of God, don't fall asleep. Number 10. It was based on a true story. Most horror fans know that A Nightmare on Elm Street is, in no small part, inspired by a true story. Writer and director Wes Craven drew inspiration from a series of Los Angeles Times articles in the 1970s about Hmong refugees afflicted with Brugada syndrome, a genetic disorder that increases the likelihood of experiencing sudden cardiac arrest. After fleeing to the United States from Laos, Cambodia and Vietnam, several refugees reported disturbing nightmares and refused to sleep, and among them, several later died in their sleep. It's frightening, folkloric, and true, and while the cause is considerably less sinister than nocturnal boogeymen, it's indicative of Craven's penchant for reworking our very real fears into something durably supernatural. Number 9. New Line Cinema is the house that Freddy built. New Line Cinema expanded their film production in the early 1980s, releasing such titles as John Waters' Polyester and Jack Shoulder's gritty home invasion slasher Alone in the Dark. Still, it wasn't until the production and release of A Nightmare on Elm Street that New Line Cinemas went public. The resulting franchise was the production studio's first successful commercial release. The first, made on a budget of $1.8 million, managed to gross over $57 million. And the sequel, A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, released 1 year later, grossed over $30 million itself at the domestic box office. Collectively, the franchise has amassed a whopping $750 million. Freddy's haunted our dreams, and also legitimised the production company in the process. Number 8. Johnny Depp's crop top. GQ has averred that men's crop tops are peak summer style, and Johnny Depp as Glenn Lance is the OG of fashionably cropped jerseys. Though the scene where he wears it admittedly ends in his death, a glorious maelstrom of blood and viscera, Glenn's crop top, second only to Krueger, is A Nightmare on Elm Street's most enduring legacy. 1, 2, crop tops are coming for you. Number 7. Freddy Krueger is based on a real man from Wes Craven's past. A hybrid between a childhood bully and a nighttime peeper, Krueger is a nightmarish patchwork of Craven's own nightmares. One evening as a child, Craven recalled looking out the window and catching a mysterious man in the street staring back at him. Craven hid, and when he finally looked again, the man was still there, now making a scary face. Craven remarked in later interviews that the man had malice in his face, and likely took a delight in trying to terrify a child. Number 6. Freddy's face is inspired by, I kid you not, pizza. A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, the Dream Master's most memorable scene is when Freddy trapped the souls of the teenagers he's killed inside sausages on a giant pizza, and proceeds to impale them with his razor fingers and eat them one by one. Curiously, David Miller, the man responsible for Freddy's burnt appearance, drew inspiration from a pizza of his own. While out for pizza one evening, Miller remarked that after playing with the pepperoni and cheese, he inadvertently made Freddy's face on the pizza. And the rest, as they say, is ooey gooey cheesy history. Number 5. Freddy's glove is a primal weapon. Craven, and mechanical special effects designer Jim Doyle, conceived of the knived glove by looking to the past. Following the thematic through line of nightmares as one of humanity's earliest fears, wanted Krueger's weapon to match. It would be the weapon of an animal, he remarked in the Never Sleep Again documentary, and alongside Doyle, worked from the foundation of a bear's claws. It's primal, it's terrifying, and it's a classic slasher weapon of choice. Number 4. Tina's death scene. A Nightmare on Elm Street's most memorable kill, second only to Glenn's eruption, is Tina's. Ostensibly the final girl, Amanda Weiss's Tina Gray is the audience's introduction to the world of Elm Street, and the machinations of Freddy's nightmares, boiler room and all. As the friends gather to keep Tina safe, she wanders off with on and off again boy toy Rod. Seemingly awake, Tina wanders out back and encounters Freddy in the alleyway. He stretches his arms out to ghastly lengths and severs his own fingers, chasing her to the back patio before tackling her and wrestling underneath a plastic backyard table. In the waking world, Tina is thrust from bed and rolls violently around the room. Wes Craven achieved the scene by nailing the furniture to a rotating set. Actress Amanda Weiss actually remained on the floor the entire time, with the set rotating around her instead. It's an impressive bit of filmic ingenuity, one that the genre arguably hasn't quite matched in terms of sheer gruesomeness or audacity. Number 3. Johnny Depp's death electrocuted a crew member. Shot in the same room as Tina's infamous death, Johnny Depp's bloody vortex death was achieved similarly. The room rotated, crew members poured massive buckets of blood through a hole in the bed, one thing led to another, and unfortunately this blood soon came into contact with a ceiling light, electrocuting a crew member. Chaos ensued and the room continued to rotate, sloshing and spilling more fake blood and shorting the circuits on several other lights and pieces of equipment. Thankfully no one was seriously hurt, and perhaps the unmitigated chaos of the scene inspired the bigger and bolder attitude of future entries. Perhaps. Number 2. Star Heather Langenkamp doesn't understand the ending. A Nightmare on Elm Street ends with Nancy apparently defeating Freddy as her mother is absorbed into her bed. Her father, played by the iconic John Saxon, then comforts her. The following morning, Nancy's mother is inexplicably alive and vows to give up drinking. It's all a bit befuddling. How exactly does Nancy defeat Freddy, and why is her mother back the following morning, ready to turn a new leaf? As Nancy leaves for school and Glenn pulls the convertible top up, the pattern insidiously matches Freddy's sweater. They lose control of the car, and as it drives off, Freddy smashes through the front window and drags Nancy's mother inside. In the Never Sleep Again documentary, Langenkamp remarked that it's a confusing scene because, with the ending we now have, it doesn't quite make sense. You know, if I turn my back and that's supposed to be a successful solution, then the fact that Freddy comes back means I failed. Producer Bob Shea wanted an ending that left the door open for a possible sequel, and Craven acquiesced. Luckily the filmed ending is close in spirit to Craven's original script ending, functionally the same minus Nancy's mother's death. Craven had hoped to suggest that life itself was dreamlike too. And number 1. There is an uncut version, only available on Laserdisc. When the studio submitted A Nightmare on Elm Street to the Motion Picture Association of America, it took 2 rounds of edits to get the movie down to an R rating. Only 13 seconds in total were cut, and that uncut content wouldn't be released in the United States until 1996, alongside the Elite Entertainment Laserdisc, a company specialising in horror Laserdisc releases. All future digital releases would instead release with the R-rated theatrical cut. The cut content is principally additional shots of blood, though given Freddy's legacy, audiences deserve to see his sensational kills in all their glorious entirety. I've been Kieran with Council of Zoom, and those were 10 incredible things about Nightmare on Elm Street. Let us know which you knew and which surprised you down in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe, and most importantly, don't fall asleep.